Hi, I'm Kesenya and welcome to Guiding Star Astrology. I'm your Astro Weather Girl and I have this week's Astro Weather Report all ready for you. Let's get stuck in. So how I usually work with my Astro Weather Reports is that I give you a little bit of a lowdown of what's happening in the sky in the week ahead, and then I break it down into how things will work for you personally based on either your rising, sun or moon sign. You can take your pick, you can look at all three, but they will all have an effect. The rising sign is the most powerful, so do check your rising sign out if you know it. But before I get stuck into the lowdown of the week ahead and then the breakdown for individual signs, I do want to just point out that it is the final week for purchasing my Astro Wheel at the discounted price. I'm selling this little number right here, my Astro Wheel. You're all probably quite familiar with it by now, for $50 off in preparation for Christmas. If you want to buy it for someone as a Christmas present or treat yourself for Christmas, then it's $50 off at the moment, and that will last for the next week, and then that special will end because I'm going to need time to get them all out to you for Christmas and for the postal service to do as they're meant to and get parcels to you on time. So place your order now in time for Christmas. There's 1 week left of that special on my you can contact me through my contact page or go to my website if you would like to. So this week's Astro Weather is rather special. We all love the activity of the moon in the sky. You know, we look forward to new moons each month and full moons and fingernail moons and, moon. And this week is no exception as we are looking towards the full moon in Taurus. This is an exalted full moon, and that's because the moon is exalted, funnily enough, in the sign of Taurus. So it's where it's comfortable, it feels very much at home, it feels safe, it feels secure. There's a real alignment between the characteristics of the moon and the characteristics of Taurus in the chart. Now, ordinarily the moon rules Cancer, the sign of Cancer, and it correlates to a lot of Cancerian themes. The moon and Cancer have a lot of similar themes about them. The moon in Taurus also has this as well, this sense of desire for safety, security and stability. These are things that we look to the moon in the chart to tell us about what a person needs in terms of safety, security and stability in life. And of course, when the moon is in Taurus, that is a big theme for the life of a person if they're born with the moon in Taurus: safety, security and stability in the material realm of life. But that aside, the moon is in great dignity in the sign of Taurus. It is strong, it is powerful. So this full moon will also be strong and powerful for all of us because we all have Taurus somewhere in the chart, and that's where we're getting this particularly strong activation, which we'll look at in the breakdown for where this is falling for all signs. Now, this full moon is occurring on the 12th of November. In most parts of the world. So this is going to be a time around, give or take a couple of days before, a couple of days after the 12th of November, we're going to start feeling this energy of the full moon. And it's a time to really focus on becoming grounded. Taurus is an earth sign. Taurus is about being grounded. It's about being present in the material reality, about being solid, being stable, as I just mentioned, safety, security, and stability in the material realm. So having enough in terms of food and clothing and shelter and all your needs being met. Taurus has a strong correlation to the resources we need to live a functional, happy, effective life. So this full moon is very focused on our material world reality. We are also reminded, though, through certain shapes, which I'll point out in a minute, that this is a preparation time for January 2020, and we can all feel this build that's occurring in the energy of the world around us and in our souls and our minds and our hearts. We're feeling this energy as we head towards January 2020, when we're going to have this conglomeration of planets in the sign of Capricorn up here, where we've got Pluto and Saturn and the nodes at the moment, and Jupiter will join there as well. And then we're going to have some eclipses on this axis in December, January. And the biggie we're all looking towards is the actual degree conjunction of these two, Pluto and Saturn. that's going to be very, very significant. And we're feeling the momentum as we head towards this time. This full moon is actually going to tie into this particular energy that will play out in January. It is a preparation time. We are heading into this period right now that is a preparation time. And the reason I say this, it's not just that I'm pulling some thoughts out of thin air, but the moon here is opposite the sun, and that's what creates a full moon. So that happens once a month. The moon goes all the way around the chart. It takes 1 month to do that around the horoscope, and every month as the sun moves into a new sign, it will eventually be opposite the moon at some point, creating a full moon each month, generally speaking. So that's the first alignment we've got, moon and sun opposition. But not only that, there is a trine, almost to the degree actually, between these planets in Capricorn to the moon. And a trine is an easy aspect, a supportive aspect, a healthy, beneficial aspect. Not only that, but the sun is making a sextile here as well. So it looks like a slice of cake or a slice of cheesecake or something, doesn't it? And it's known as a wedge shape that's being created. A sextile here, which is an easy aspect, but it requires us to take opportunities that are presented to us, to run with things, to take action. We need to see the opportunity and run with it. This is more things falling into our lap. So we might find at the time of this full moon, things are falling into our lap materially, designed to prepare us for this coming conjunction in the month of January 2020. So this is a time, don't neglect your material resources now. I just want to say this for everybody. Make sure that you are building. If you want to, put a little bit of money aside each week, $20 each week, just in a little separate account or in a piggy bank or something. Preparation. Have your material resources stored and collected. This is a sign of collecting things in preparation for what next year is going to bring and the change that's going to come. This full moon is a reminder to do that. And it won't be hard to do it because, as I said, a trine is easy. It's energy that unfolds without effort. You know, if it won't be hard to put your coffee money aside in a piggy bank just for a rainy day in preparation for the next 2 months in the lead up to January. So get your material resources in order. That's what this shape is speaking to me. Get your material resources in order in preparation for the future. It's a wise thing to do at any time, but especially in the lead up to what we're coming into next year. And the reason I say this astrologically is that whenever we have an opposition, there is tension. Even a full moon, there is a tension there. There's a need to integrate, in this case, Sun in Scorpio energy with Moon in Taurus energy, and to bring them somehow together, to align them together. And that's not always an easy thing to do, to integrate two polaric opposites. But the way out, the relief, whenever we have this shape appearing in the horoscope, the way out with it is actually to focus on the wedge, to put our energy into the wedge. The wedge point up here, that is what is going to help us align these two opposition planets. So we're going to have need now to focus on building our resources, preparing our material world in preparation for this. And by doing that, we are easing the tension between the opposition. So I hope I'm making sense here with how these actual energies are playing out. Not only that, it's quite an interesting shape that this full moon is going to create for us all, because there is also a sextile here. Just ignore Uranus in the way there. A sextile to Neptune in Pisces and the moon. Okay, and that is also making a trine here. So we've got a double wedge shape. There's a wedge happening like this, and there's a wedge happening like this. So we have two ways out of any tension that's created by this opposition of Sun and Moon that's occurring on the 12th of November. So we've got this in Capricorn, the material reality. Capricorn is also an earth sign, preparing for this future alignment and conjunction, putting structures in place with our material goods. Saturn is to put structures in place. The moon in Taurus is about our money and our finances and our resources. Put structures in place now and address any fears that you might have, or any beliefs that you might have about money, about resources that might be causing some problem. Pluto is our traumas, and our Saturn's our fears. So the combination of the two is asking you to address any belief systems and traumas and fears you might have around money and resources and property and even self-worth as well. But also Neptune's involved, as I've just pointed out, by being another wedge way out of the tension. And Neptune is spirituality. So really focus in on spiritual themes over the next 2 months, particularly the next month following on from this full moon until the next full moon. Focus on spirituality. So that might be praying more. It might be being more compassionate. Neptune is compassion. It might be reading spiritual books. It might be connecting with the divine in some way. It might be talking to your angels or your spirit guides, any type of spiritual practice that really does it for you, that draws you closer to the energies of the universe. Neptune is obviously the king of the ocean, so if you get the chance to go to the ocean or swim, or even a river or a lake, get involved in some sort of water activity or be near water, that's also going to help calm any tensions and allay any sort of tensions that might be present through the opposition of the moon and sun in this full moon. So that's some strategies with regard to the wedge shape that this full moon is creating. But one of the things this full moon is asking us to do is get real, to really get honest about our material situation in life, about how we spend our money, how we approach our material goods. Are we a shopaholic? Do we just never stop spending money? Is that our only form of entertainment in life, to go to the mall on the weekend and spend up all the money I've earned? Maybe we go out and get drunk every Friday night and spend all the money we've earned during the week in that way. Where are we spending our money? This is what this full moon is calling our attention to and asking us to focus on right now. And it's a healthy thing to do, like I said, in preparation for what lies ahead, but it's a healthy thing to do at any time. Get real, get honest about what's going on. And it'll be helpful if you keep in mind that Uranus is there in Taurus as well. Uranus asks us to be honest and authentic and real about the things Taurus represents: finances, money, financial systems, also the environment as well, our relationship to the environment. How are we treating the environment? How are we treating animals? This week in Australia is a very famous horse race is being run, and there's gaining more and more momentum each year against this horse race and the cruelty that it brings to animals and the exploitation that it's bringing. So it's interesting that this is occurring this week as well in Australia. But generally, any relationships to nature, to the environment, to forests, to the land, to the things that the land produces, environmental systems, we're asked to get more authentic and honest and real about those things as well, particularly over the next 6 years or so as Uranus remains in Taurus. But the emphasis is still there powerfully this month with this full moon in the sign of Taurus. But for us on a personal level, it's about getting honest about our material circumstances, the way we're treating the environment as well, and our actual self-love too is seen by this. How we are honoring the self, how we are loving the self. Do we love the self? And asking questions in that regard right now. We might actually find that this full moon brings our financial circumstances to something of a head. So I'm not for one moment suggesting it's going to bring you into a state of poverty. That's not the case, but we're going to be asked to address our circumstances with regard to these things and make the necessary changements and adjustments to restructure Saturn in an easy way, our material circumstances. And there will probably be some kind of trigger that will cause this to happen for you. It might be someone just says something. It might be listening to this video and hearing me say something. It might be that you look at your bank account and go, oh my God, I didn't realize that I was spending so much money on shoes all the time, and you sort of, make an adjustment there, so there's going to be some catalyst brought about by the full moon that will bring your material relationship with the world to a head, which is necessary. Now also, this full moon is going to be obviously drawing in the energy of the sun in Scorpio. That's the combination of the two. It's not just a big focus on Taurus, although that will be strong, but Scorpio energy comes in too. And this is requiring us to find a balance between being passionate. The sun is our ego in the sign of intense passion. Drawing in a balance between passion and ego and our passion and ego and our emotions being overly intense. So we need to balance calmness. Taurus is to have emotional calmness and rationality and balance in many ways, with this emotional and egoic intensity that is sometimes present with Scorpio energy. Self-love is also important now, as I mentioned, but watch out. Ask yourself questions around themes of, where are you being lazy? Because Taurus is actually a lazy sign. So are other signs as well. It's not just Taurus alone, but it likes things to be calm and relaxed and no fuss. And hey, I'm not going to get too head up or intense about things. That's just Taurus's, I was going to say Torpio. Taurus's style is that way. So ask yourself questions now in the light of self-love about where am I being perhaps a little bit lazy? Where am I behaving jealously? Scorpio energy is jealous, it's envious. Ask yourself, where is that playing out in my life, and where is it actually not helping me with my self-love and my love for my fellow human beings? Where am I chasing money? That's another question that you can ask. Where am I chasing money rather than my heart? Because Taurus is to have that stability and security in the material realm, that then our focus is so strongly in that realm that we neglect our heart. What do we really love to do? What is really our motivation for being in this job? Now is a time for reflecting on that. Is your heart where you are putting your efforts to earn money? And if the two are not aligned, you might be being called by the universe now to make some structural changes in preparation for next year, so that your heart and your actions regarding money reflect more self-love for who you are, more honoring of who you are and your desires to accomplish in the world. It's a really important time to look at these things now. Taurus is practical energy. It's very, like I said, it's a grounded earth sign. It's realistic. It likes pleasure. It likes joy. It likes indulgence and things like that. But it's not off in the clouds and in daydreams and in fairyland. It's realistic about what you materially need to survive on the planet and to support your body's journey through this lifetime. So Taurus is this practical earth, material realm focused sign. Scorpio is connected to magic and the ethereal. It's connected to energy, healing, and other realms. And sort of very deep, intense ideas and energies. So it's very opposite to where Taurus is at. They're quite different. What's also interesting to note in this alignment is that Mercury is up here with the Sun, very, very close, and Mercury is retrograde at the moment until the 21st of November. So Mercury retrograde is internalizing our thought processes in Scorpio, which I talked about in last week's video. What this is saying is that we are being asked to dream big. To dream big now. Mercury and the Sun together in Scorpio, our dreams and the magical potential of our lives is where the focus is for our ego right now. Scorpio is magic. But we are being asked in this full moon not to be lazy, but to take practical material steps to achieve our magical aspirations, our egoic, ethereal, otherworldly desires for our life. Make your plans now in readiness for when Mercury turns direct. Now, I'll give you an example of how this is playing out in my life. As most people know, I'm Pisces rising. So this is putting this energy in my third house. The full moon will be in my third house. Third house correlates to small business. This weekend just gone, I have done a workshop, a 3-day workshop in past life regression work to support me in my karmic astrology readings, but also to perhaps give me another life skill that I might be able to utilize as a hypnotherapist down the track. which I'm absolutely loving, by the way. And that is very much the nature of Scorpio energy. Scorpio energy is the energy of like regression work, energy healing, mystical things, magical things, you might even say. And to be able to connect to your past lives and learn lessons from these past lives is very much, it's quite it's almost a magical experience, or what we would term in very practical reality, that would be a magical experience. It's not a very grounded experience, but a valuable, precious one just the same. So this is what's been occurring for me. I've had this experience, this weekend workshop just gone, here in very scorpionic realms, and connecting with a very inspirational teacher, Brian Weiss, as well, in this regard. So this is my 9th house of inspirational figures, learning, higher learning, higher knowledge, higher understanding in the magical sign of Scorpio. And I'm integrating it with a practical reality in my 3rd house of small business practice. It will be integrated into my karmic reading work, the knowledge that I've gained, and perhaps as a hypnotherapist regressionist in the future. So it's correlating to my small business that I run for myself and utilizing these particular 9th house skills. So you can see how this aspirational, magical energy of Scorpio in my life has outworked with a correlation to an integration with this. But I'm not putting anything into action yet. I will wait so it's a planning time, it's a learning time, it's a preparation time, and then once Mercury goes direct, I might be able to start utilizing this information, this knowledge, this newfound wisdom, and start offering new products. So that is what like the example from my own life of how this full moon energy is actually playing out, probably a bit of the new moon energy as well, on this axis for me. And we're going to look at that in detail for all signs in just a minute. So I want to ask you, in what realm do you need to integrate practicality and magic in your life? Real world material action and a belief, or a trust rather, not a belief, but a trust in forces beyond the tangible, touchable, material world that we live in. Where do you need to balance your intensity? So this could like, where do you need to ground yourself, in practical matters? So maybe, for example here, you might have been very, very intense about, my past life regression work, and it's all I could talk about, and it's all where my head was, Mercury, and it's where my energy was, and I'm just super intense about it. Maybe I need to balance that out with some kind of, tangible world offering, in my small business, balance my intensity with some sort of practical measures, doing the course, getting the certificate, connecting with other like-minded people perhaps as well, and teammates, which is seen by the 3rd house people who you network with in your field. So balancing that out has been part of what I've done. So grounding myself with more practical matters to balance out my intensity in a certain realm. So I hope this is making sense. We're going to go through all signs now and have a look at how that plays out. And I'm going to do something different just because I like to be a little bit odd on occasions. And we're going to go backwards through the chart, and we're going to start with Pisces. Well, I've just given you a lovely example, beautiful Pisces rising people, where we're going to need to integrate practicality and magic, or real world material action, with trust in the higher realms, trust in the energetic forces that surround us, and also where we need to balance our intensity with practical matters as well. And for all of those who are Piscean, this is falling in the 3rd house. So an integration of 3rd house energy, which is correlates to communication, it's speech, how we speak, how we talk, how we write about things, our written communication, our verbal communication, our siblings and our teammates, our relatives as well, any type of initial lower level learning, and by that I mean the skills of our hands. It's also primary learning that we see through this house as well. And our skills and our, like I just said, skills of our hands, our skill levels, but also short trips, short traveling, expeditions that are sort of less than 300 kilometers away. So maybe a drive in the country one afternoon to, as a family outing or something. Those sorts of short trips are represented by the third house. And obviously, as I stated in the example that I gave, small businesses as well. These are the realms of life that you are going to notice a need to integrate with scorpionic things, which I'll describe in a minute. But remember how I said we're going to need to focus on the material realm as well in preparation for January, when we have all this action up here. Well, this is the realm, your small business. Get your small business details in, financial details in order during this time as well. If you are a Pisces rising person, get your, enrollment in certain courses organized, and any payments you need to make to do any skills courses or any teaching things, if get your websites all set up in preparation. Launch them when Mercury goes direct, but get your websites all planned and prepared and set up in readiness for what's going to happen next year. This is a time for getting these material world things that correlate to the third house set up and organized. And of course, we're integrating all of this with our ninth house, and the ninth house is larger travel. That doesn't mean you're going to get the opportunity for larger travel, but you might. But it more likely is going to correlate to cultural experiences, knowledge of other cultures, knowledge of other belief systems, wisdom regarding cultural practices. So you might get an opportunity to go to some sort of cultural festival, blues fest, or some sort of ethnic celebration of some description, like a Greek wedding, or some sort of birthday momentous celebration that's very cultural. These are the kinds of things that can occur for you now that you will need to integrate with practical reality in some way, but also philosophy, higher learning, higher teaching as well, like university level teaching, any type of adventures. This is a house of adventure, the ninth house. So integrating your need for sort of esoteric, Scorpio is esoteric things, esoteric adventures, spiritual adventures, energetic adventures with practical grounded reality as well. Other cultures, religion and belief are also seen from here. So you might be integrating, say, like I did, an esoteric adventure into past life regression with a practical reality in my small business. So that's one example. So let's move along and have a look at the next sign, which going backwards will be beautiful Aquarius. I've had a lot of Aquarius people come into my life in recent times, and I'm really, really enjoying their logic and their knowledge and their wisdom. Love you, Aquarius people. Well, this is going to put the energy that you need to focus on through this full moon in the 4th house and the 10th house. So for a start, you need to get organized in the material realm with regard to your home in preparation for next year. So maybe, your garden's a total mess and you need to just get out in the garden this weekend and straighten things out. Maybe there's some renos that need doing, some renovations that need focusing on. Get onto it. Get set up for the next 2 months and organize your renovations so that the home is functioning well. Maybe connections also with maternal line that you need to sort out. Put things right with a mother figure or a maternal figure, or go back home to visit your place of origin. These are some material world things that you might need to address with this full moon in preparation for what's coming up for us all next year. Now, you may also need to integrate practicality and magic, or real world action with forces that are beyond the tangible, so to speak, and grounding of yourself as opposed to being too intense regarding career and home. So that's an integration between career and worldly achievements. 10th house, you're passionate, you're intense about your worldly achievements and what you're doing in career and the connections that you're making with father figures and authority figures, 10th house things. You're integrating those things with your home life and your inner world, your innermost feelings and thoughts. You might also find, as Aquarius rising people, we've got, this is the house of the mother, and you've got the moon, the symbol of the mother, in the house of the mother, and the symbol of the father in the house of the father. For you guys, for you Aquarius rising people, this may be a period, the next 2 weeks or so, where you are integrating the relationship that you have with the mother and the father. It could mean, even if your father's passed away or your mother's passed away, integrating her memory or his memory in some way into your life that is more holistic and giving a much more fulfilled perspective. And this is very much correlated to the wedge shape we're seeing from Neptune, the need to spiritually connect with and align with at your core the mother and the father energy. So there is this calling of higher things and other realms, Scorpio energy, with practical reality that's going to help you in your everyday experience. So don't be afraid to, speak to your deceased parents, or in tangible reality, ring them up and talk to them and discuss and try and resolve any problems that might exist. Integrating mother-father energy into your life through being compassionate, Neptune, being gracious, having that unconditional love that Neptune calls us to. So this can be part of what your experience is if you're Aquarius rising in the coming week as a result of this full moon. So the next sign that I want to whiz through to is Capricorn, where all this action's taking place in January. Get ready, guys. But Taurus, for Capricorn rising people, is the 5th house. So for you, this is where you're going to need to focus organizing, restructuring, and setting up your material realm in preparation for next year. So this could mean putting some money aside for a bit of pleasure and enjoyment, because the 5th house is pleasure and enjoyment and delight. Maybe going to the theater, or maybe out for dinner, or to a restaurant, or having fun and being entertained. It's quite legitimate to put money aside in preparation and structure those things. The 5th house is very glamorous as well. It's about self-expression, it's about creativity, it's about children, romance, love, and it's also about risk-taking. So it's in these realms that you might want to have some money put aside, or organize your material connection to those things. For example, children, 5th house. And so you might, coming up to a new school year, at least here in Australia, you might think, oh, I better start getting their school uniforms organized for next year, or I might start needing to put aside some money to pay for their new laptop that they need at school. So it's really focusing on the material, everyday reality, material goods connected to children, connected to lovers, connected to your desire to have a bit of entertainment and joy and pleasure in your life, connected to how you express yourself. Maybe you need some new art supplies for a new painting that you're wanting to get started on or something, and now's your chance to restructure and organize how you're dealing with your money in those realms. Now there's also, just briefly, an integration of practicality and your passionate intensity, if you're Capricorn rising, between your 11th house and your 5th house. So a need to integrate friendships and relationships, networking capacity, any sort of allies that you've got, or community involvements that you're in, needing to integrate that with a love for the self. 5th house is very much about honoring the self and putting the self forward, putting the self out there. So there's an integration between others and the self with this axis as well. But more this is humanitarian causes and looking after the greater good and the collective, and this is about honoring your needs for happiness and recognition and very strong self-love. So it's a combination, a need for you to integrate the two, to balance your intensity in these regards and ground yourself with practical matters. What practical matters or practical action rather, can you undertake to help balance your relationships with friends? Maybe this is saying to you, if you're Capricorn rising, you need to spend more time looking after your own creative interests instead of giving to the friendship circles that you're in all the time. It could be as simple as that. Maybe it's telling you that you need to integrate more time with your children rather than with your groups and clubs here. And so there's this need to, mind of its own here, need to balance out this axis in some way that this full moon here is calling you to address. And now Sagittarius rising, where we've got some beautiful Venus-Jupiter action occurring, which we'll talk about probably in next week's video. But for you Sagittarius rising people, well, this is putting this axis on the 6th house, 12th house axis. So the full moon rather on the 6th house, 12th house axis. This means that it's in the realm of work and everyday life and everyday routines that you are needing to shore up material reality in preparation. That'll happen quite easily for you in preparation for next year. So this might mean getting, hiring a personal trainer to help you get fit, get well, to heal from something even. It might mean that you go on a new diet and you invest in buying some food you wouldn't ordinarily eat just to help you with your physical health and well-being, which is very much a 6th house thing. So these are material actions that you might like to put into place in readiness for next year. For you, the focus is going to be in the next month, getting those things shored up and organized and ready for next year. The full moon is calling you to address those things, but it's also calling you to integrate the 12th house, sorry, I've gone a bit funny there, 12th house, 6th house axis, and the 12th house is, it's an integration, sorry, the 12th, sorry about that. We're integrating real world practical reality, Taurus, with magic and ethereal things and balancing our trust in the universe and in things that are a bit intangible with the tangible here. And this is very strongly represented on the 12th house, 6th house axis. The 12th house, where there is intensity for you with Scorpio there, is all about overseas travel, maybe a holiday, maybe a trip that you're preparing, taking some sort of charitable action or compassionate action to help others in some way, from a place of devotion. Sacred service is seen by the 12th house. Inspiration, spirituality, healing, and inspired creativity are all 12th house themes. So there's an intensity in those things for you guys just naturally with Scorpio as that sign. And with the sun there, at the moment, there's this big, intense egoic focus there. Not a bad thing, but the ego is very much connected to how can I help? How can I serve? How can I be compassionate to others? And you're integrating this in a practical way with the 6th house, which happens to be all about health and, as I said, health and well-being. So you might be very, very much being drawn to integrate compassionate service in the lives of others through this full moon. Offering some sort of charitable work or support. You're emotionally drawn to doing that. Helping people who are ill or people who haven't got as many opportunities as you do. Providing help and support to others. You might just be really drawn to doing that over the next month or so till the next full moon. And that's a great thing. It's a beautifully compassionate axis. It's not the easiest axis. The 12th house, 6th house in Vedic astrology, both these houses are considered to be difficult houses, but it's a very spiritual axis. It's about service. It's about compassion. It's about kindness and helping. So devote, put your energy there, focus your energy there, and integrate the higher spiritual leanings that you will have as a Sagittarius rising person with the practical application to help others and to set up your daily life and daily routine as well. Integrate your spirituality with your practical everyday living. That's what this full moon is calling you to do. Scorpio energy is putting this quite obviously on the axis of 1st house, 7th house. So if you happen to be Scorpio rising, and I know so many of my clients are Scorpio rising people, hello to you all. But this is an axis where you are going to have to focus on the material realm that has to do with 7th house things. Shoring things up, stabilizing things, restructuring things, preparing things for next year in this realm. What does this look like? Well, this might mean business partnerships. That's one of the foremost things that we would see from the 7th house. What are your relationships like with your business partners? Time to ask that now. And by business partners, we can be talking about the person who does your local advertising in the newspaper, or the person who designs your flyers for your business. It might be some sort of client as well. All your clients are seen by the 7th house. Any business partnerships where there is a connection needed with another person are seen by the 7th house. Also marriages. So if your marriage is in a practical way not delivering, not functioning well, then you need to focus on that quite legitimately at the moment. Put your energy there, put your focus there, put your thoughts there, take action. Don't be lazy. Taurus is lazy. Don't be lazy about taking action for relationships. Put your focus there. You'll need to in preparation, and it'll be easy to do it, but the full moon's asking you to do that in preparation for next year's big alignment. It's going to help you to have relationships in a healthy spot, business partnerships and otherwise. But you will also need to integrate yourself and your ability to survive and thrive in the world. That's very much the Scorpio energy. You'll need to integrate that with your compassion, well, not compassion, but with your relationships with others. 7th house is other people. As I said, it's relationships. 7th house is also our open enemies. It's people who openly say, I hate your guts. You know, people who leave the disgusting comments on YouTube videos and things like that. Open enemies. 7th house is justice, business partnerships, marriage, spouses, the arts, and refined, sophisticated culture are seen by the 7th house. So in these realms, you need to integrate that with your with yourself, love, with the way you show up in the world, the first impressions that you give, with your appearance. You need to integrate that with your physical body, your sense of identity, your sense of survival. So this could quite practically be asking you to physically go and attend some sort of refined, sophisticated event. That could be the integration, the meeting of the two, you and your physical body and your presence being present at some, like maybe a friend's or a lover's art exhibition that they're opening. And the full moon is saying you need to address this, you need to go be there, you need to support this other person with your physical presence. Could be something just as simple as that. Often astrology doesn't play out in big sort of fireworks ways. It's the subtle little things that we might not even realize are astrological energy. So it could be something as simple as that. It might be supporting a business partner in some endeavor as well. It might be that sort of a business partner wants to use your appearance, your physical face, your body, in some piece of promotional work that they're doing, and they want to, use you in an interview or something like that. That could be the case. Pay attention when those things come up, Scorpio rising people, because that is what the full moon can be calling you towards. An integration of the self, the sun, which represents the ego in the house of self for you, integrating with collaborative efforts, business partnerships, relationship issues, and so forth. So make sure that you are willing, or available rather, to integrate your presence, your physical appearance with any type of endeavors that are 7th house related, as I've just described. All right, let's move on and have a look at Libra. Libra rising people. Okay, if you're Libra rising, this energy is falling for you in the 8th house, and it's in 8th house matters. If you're Libra rising, please, or sun or moon for that matter, or if you have a big stellium in Libra, you can listen to this as well. I just want to encourage you guys, if you are Libra strong in any way, to really put effort to set up and organize and structure your resources, particularly any resources that correlate to other people. So for example, any wills, get them in place now. Any sort of premarital, prenuptial agreements, get them organized now. Any sort of those contractual financial matters, any inheritances that you want to leave people, get the I's dotted and the T's crossed regarding other people's financial matters that will affect you. It's imperative, actually. If you're Libra rising, this is very important, because that's what the 8th house correlates to, and it is a time for structuring and preparing and organizing material matters concerning these things in preparation for next year. So, like I said, wills, inheritances, divorce settlements even, if you're Libra rising, or Libra strong, but also anything to do with crisis management. So that could be insurances as well, flood insurance on your home, or bushfire insurance, or whatever it happens to be that you feel you might need, or that's important to you, that means something to you. You get a leap in your heart when that sort of issue is raised, and you're like, yeah, I've really got to address that. Get insurances organized too, because this is a house of crisis and crisis management. So you want to materially do what needs to be done in readiness for any crises that might occur. Health insurance and so on, if you're that way inclined. Yes. So the other thing that you'll be focusing on now, if you're Libra rising or have Libra strong, is an integration between second house and eighth house. This is the money axis, actually one of the money axes. And it's important, therefore, because we've got Scorpio, intensity and passion, but here in your money house, and it needs to correlate and combine and integrate with the eighth house, which is all about, as I've just described, other people's money. So you need to organize and structure things with regard to other people's money and your spouse's money and that sort of stuff, if you happen to be Libra rising. But you also need to integrate how you make money, how you're going about creating resources for living, second house things, how you are even working on your self-love, which is second house, and your ability to receive from another might need addressing, and integrating your love for self and the ability to receive from others needs to come together in some way. So this could simply mean that you sit down with your partner or with your parents or whatever, and you have a good discussion about money and where things are going financially. Okay, mum and dad, have you got your will in order? Who in the family is going to get what? We need to do a bit of succession planning. This is quite practical at this time. Looking at who you are and how things are set up for you in a financial matter. Looking at your own financial income and how you're going to have enough money for the future to survive. I just want to encourage Libra people, this full moon is causing you to get realistic and grounded now about financial matters. It's very strong for you guys because it happens to fall this full moon on the money axis. So give attention to those things. If you are putting any new contracts in place or any new plans in place regarding financial matters, wise, very good of you, well done, or reviewing any financial matters, but don't sign anything, don't take any, instigation of anything until Mercury, where is Mercury? Over here, goes direct on the 21st of November. Hold off on actually enacting things until then, but now's the time for discussion, planning, preparing, reviewing things instead in financial matters. All right, if you are Virgo rising, boom, Virgo rising, this energy is falling in the 9th house, 3rd house axis. So it's very similar to what I spoke about when I talked about Pisces, except it's reversed. The area that you're going to have to focus on in terms of practical organization, setting things up, preparing things in readiness for what is going to occur in Capricorn next year, and we're getting this lovely supportive energy to do this now, it's going to have to be around higher learning. If you happen to be Virgo rising or Virgo strong, sun, moon, or a stellium in Virgo, you might like to look at your belief systems and do some practical things around belief systems. That could mean, I want to connect with a guru. I want to sign up for that person's meditation course, or whatever it happens to be, some higher learning. You might decide, now is the time. Okay, I've wanted to do this for ages. Now I need to structure this and take some real world action regarding this piece of higher learning that I want to do, regarding maybe connecting or buying a book that this person's written, or buying a series or a webinar and connecting with some higher learning regarding beliefs and so forth. It might also mean that you need to get a bit practical and realistic about travel opportunities. For example, here down in Scorpio, this is your 3rd house. Maybe you've planned on traveling for business at some point. And this full moon, particularly the moon in Taurus, is saying get realistic and grounded about this. Have you put the money aside to go on that trip to Spain or wherever it happens to be? Have you got the money sorted? Have you got the accommodation sorted? Let's get practical and realistic about traveling for small business. This is what this axis looks like. So that's one thing this moon might be manifesting or causing to happen in your life. It's asking you to get practical and realistic about cultural affairs, traveling, small business, belief systems as well, really reviewing your belief systems and getting grounded about what you believe, getting true and honest. Remember, Uranus is there too, true and honest and real about what you actually do believe and what you stand for, morally as well as philosophically. And this is a house, as I said, of adventure. So you might have to get a bit more realistic and grounded about your adventurous side if you are a Virgo rising. I mean, you'll be very realistic and practical anyhow with Virgo as your rising sign. But this is the house of, not taking risks per se, but going on adventures and expanding the mind, expanding the soul, expanding the heart through adventures. Be realistic about that. Again, that's where travel comes in. Travel is, whenever we travel, we expand our awareness of the world around us. That's really the beauty of traveling, and that's why it's correlated to the ninth house, because traveling expands our conscious awareness of life on the planet. And so maybe that's an area that you need to get realistic too about having adventures. Maybe you need more of them. And maybe that's something you need to ask yourself. How do I go out and have more adventures and expand my consciousness, expand my awareness to be more, in nature, in other cultural situations, perhaps. It's Taurus's nature, ninth house is other cultural situations. So there is this need to get grounded about those things, but also there is this need to integrate third house as well, learning more, applying more skills, utilizing your small business. Traveling for small business is a big theme for Virgo and Pisces people with this full moon. So it might be a short trip for you, or it could be an overseas type long trip that you're looking at, but there will be other cultural influences involved that might need, where you need to integrate your skills, your abilities, your learning capacity with traveling and connecting with gurus. Your skills, your abilities, your learning and speaking and writing opportunities with gurus, people from overseas, other cultures, inspirational figures in some way, bringing the two together. If you happen to be a Virgo rising person, there will be a theme of this in some way for you over the next couple of weeks with this full moon. Okay, if you are Leo rising, well, your energy or rather the energy of the full moon happens to be falling. The energy of the full moon happens to be falling on your 10th house and, had to have a good look there, 10th house, 4th house axis, which is the reverse of what Aquarius is feeling. So for you, for Aquarius, it was focused on get your home sorted, get the practical reality of home life all sorted out and addressed. For Leo, it's the opposite. Get your work life sorted out. What practical endeavors and grounded earthly endeavors do you need to undertake to get things sorted in the career realm? Maybe you need to go and have a sit down and a chat with your boss about potential future in the company, and say, look, what are my options here? Is there potential for me to grow through this company? Do I have the chance to get a promotion? Or is this just never going to happen for me? And maybe you need to review things in a practical, realistic way. This full moon will be calling your attention to restructuring and reorganizing how you're functioning in career and your relationship with authority figures, what the future potential is for you. And you'll need to take action on this. It's not a time for being lazy. In doing this, in taking this restructuring process regarding career, looking at where things are at, you will be preparing yourself in readiness for the changes that this is going to bring about next year in 2020. And that's why, just if you didn't catch the start of this video, there is this wedge shape here that is a big focus and will take tension out of the opposition that we are seeing with this full moon. Being spiritual is going to be very important as well, and having a spiritual approach to any crisis situation is going to be very, very important for you. So for example, let's say you go and have that chat with the boss. What's the potential here for me? Am I going to get a promotion, or is this just sort of going nowhere? Then you're may need to trust very much on your spiritual intuition and your inner wisdom and your inner guidance about what to do. Maybe the boss says, hey, look, we haven't got any promotions available at this time, and you just have to keep doing what you're doing, and you've got to really listen. It might create a bit of a crisis for you. This is the 8th house of crisis and change and transformation, and maybe if that occurs, you're going to need to listen to your intuition and your gut. Trust the universe, trust your heart, that any changes that need to be made are going to be blessed for you, transformational, and for your greater good. Crisis, sometimes these little mini crises that we have are very necessary to push us into our future destiny and our greater awareness, greater consciousness, and a better life. So Neptune would be very much calling you to trust in that way. That's Neptune's all about, trust. But this isn't a lecture about Neptune. For you guys, that's where the integration is needed. 10th house things, but also melding home life and career with this full moon. So there is this need with this full moon to have more work-life balance. That's the calling with a full moon on this axis. Home life, inner world, connection to maternal figures, the physical bricks and mortar home that you've got, drawing that in to career and combining the two, having a better work-life balance. So maybe you go and have a chat to your boss. Where's the future going? What's the potential? He says, things are going to stay the same, and you're like, well, you know what, I need to have a better work-life balance in preparation for what lies ahead for me. I want to have more sanity. I want to have more time with my children. I want to have a better quality relationship with my wife where I'm not stressed to the max all the time. I'm going to have to change. I'm going to have to alter what I'm doing. So this can be very much a wake-up call in terms of career and home and work-life balance for Leo people. That's just one example. There is this need to integrate. 4th house matters. Home, family, heritage, roots, lineage, mother figures, maternal figures, your inner emotional world with your outer world, how you shine in the world, what your career aspirations are, what your legacy is that you want to leave. There's a need to combine and integrate the two in a very practical, tangible way through this. If you are Cancer rising, sun sign, moon sign, stellium, then this is going to be falling on your 11th house and the 5th house axis. So it's really asking you with Taurus as your 11th house that's getting the exalted activation of this full moon. It's asking you to organize and restructure and address in as practical way as possible the material things connected to friendships, connected to social groups, connected to your gains. And what I mean by that is maybe you've been working your butt off in some career for years, 10, 20 years in some career. What rewards you need to now analyze? What rewards am I getting for this work? Have I achieved what I wanted to achieve? Am I achieving my dreams? This 11th house where the moon sits is the house of dreams, goals, aspirations, and rewards. Are you getting the rewards for the long haul you've been putting in? You might like to ask yourself. And then if change is needed, now's the time. You are well supported with the alignments in the sky to make changes so that you are getting your just desserts, so to speak. Maybe you've been putting in to a friendship for a long, long time and it's just not fulfilling to you anymore. Maybe that needs some changes as well. Full moon in Taurus can give you the impetus to make changes needed in friendship circles and maybe in groups, maybe in sort of realms of humanitarian activism as well. You might need to make some changes also. So this is 11th house territory, and you're going to need to be realistic and practical and make any necessary changes in a material way, in the tangible world reality, that will help support and set things up for you next year. This could look like, let me give you an example, changing friendship groups. Maybe you've been friends with a group of people, you get together with all the young mums who'd love to, sit around and drink wine while their kids are running amok. And, you just feel like these people aren't my people anymore. I need to change this. This is not my scene. So you go and find people that you do connect with, some sort of other mothers group that's more your style. And mothers group is very applicable because opposition to the house of children. But you make the change, and in doing so you develop a whole new friendship circle, a whole new connection and group dynamic that will support you through whatever next year will bring us with this big conglomeration. So it's really important, if you're feeling funny about friendships, about groups in any way, or even about their aspirations in life, if you feel a bit funny about what your dreams are and your goals are, review it, change it if needed. You'll have what it takes with this full moon to make the necessary changes in preparation for what next year will bring us. There's also a need with every full moon to integrate two very different energies, and in this case we're looking at 5th house, children, lovers, pleasure, joy, fun, self-expression, with 11th house matters, like I just described, friendships, social groups, your dreams and aspirations. So there's a need to combine your creative expression with your dreams and goals and aspirations. Now you'll probably get some insight, some enlightenment, some new wisdom around how you can do those things. You'll also like I've just described with the analogy that I gave you, there's a need to look at your children and your friendship groups. How, what's the combination here? Is it working? Does it need to be changed? Do I need to integrate my role as a mother and taking care of children with some sort of different social connection, social group that's more beneficial to me and my children? That's one example as well. There are many, many ways that this can play out. This is just one of them. And yeah, it's an exciting axis to be looking at integration and the potential for making reviews and restructuring that can benefit you. So that's the 5th house, 11th house axis for Cancer rising. If you happen to be Gemini rising, well, this energy is going to be falling in your 12th house, 6th house axis. So this is actually a difficult axis, 12th house, 6th house axis, because it's two, what the Vedic system teaches, two very difficult, challenging house placements, 6th house and 12th house. So for you guys, as Gemini rising, you're going to need to focus on your material realm, but in a very spiritual way. Taurus is the 12th house for you guys, and this is where the full moon is occurring. So full moon in the 12th house, there's illumination being brought to spiritual matters, creative matters, matters of past life, issues. Maybe you mightn't have even realized that past life issues are coming up. Someone might give you a message about changing some attitude or belief, and you don't even know that it's actually a belief you've clung to for many, many lifetimes that needs to be resolved, and so forth. These sorts of things will be illuminated for you now, and you need to get very practical and grounded and earthly with a very spiritual house. Not an easy thing for you guys to do if you're Gemini rising. But one way you can do this is actually to be more compassionate, to show more compassion and kindness. That's a practical thing you can reevaluate. Am I being compassionate enough? Am I being kind enough? Am I showing my 12th house side to the world? And you can review that now as well. Surrendering to a higher power is what we see in the 12th house. So are you doing that, or do you try to control everything? These are some things you might want to consider if you happen to be Gemini rising. The full moon will be illuminating that need for control, or the letting go and letting God, which is really the preferable state. More of a practical focus now on your spiritual pathway. That's part of what is coming up for you guys now. And the ability to welcome change. If you're not good with change, and Taurus as a 12th house is quite a stuck energy, if you're not good at welcoming change into your life, then there is a calling with this full moon to address that and do practical things to make a difference there, make a change there. Now, with Gemini rising, there is a need to integrate 6th house and 12th house things. So this, with a full moon here, this means that you're going to need to draw in service, practical service to the world with a compassionate heart. And so this is the heart focus, the drive from within, so to speak, and this is the practical service, not just obligation here, but with practical love. you're going to need to look at, how am I serving in the world? How can I help those less fortunate and people who are diseased and sick and so forth? It's not just a matter of I must practically try and restore balance. It's where's my heart in all this? So this full moon is making you focus on those things and look at your heart attitude and integrate that with your practical endeavors to better society in some way. Now, this is also, the sixth house is also health and well-being. So you will be addressing health and well-being, integrating that with your spiritual practice. So this is actually a really good time for starting some kind of meditation practice or yoga practice, or some sort of, doing past life regression work can be really good for you now. If you start this during the full moon on this axis. So you might undertake a past life regression. There's a lot online that you can jump on and have a look at, and it can be very cathartic and healing for you at this time. You might take some sort of practical, like I said, yoga, meditation, doing other sort of spiritual practices in a practical way that are going to support you and help you for the days ahead, especially into 2020. So if you're Gemini, maybe you might like to review those and take action in that regard. How can you incorporate spiritual work with your everyday routine? Now, if you're Taurus rising, well, obviously this full moon is falling in your first house. So for you, there is a need to review, if you like, and restructure and organize and get really grounded and practical about how you are showing up in the world and what you're doing with your body. In what way do you live your life? Is it in alignment with what your heart and soul really wants? Or are you really out of alignment with what you want in life, with where you're heading? Is the direction you're going in just way off track? Maybe you've worked in banking for years and years and years as a Taurus rising person, and you're just starting to feel like this is absurd. I'm sick of the corruption in this industry and I can't stand trying to exploit other people. And so you say, enough already, let's make a change. Taurus rising, how are you journeying through life? Is it in alignment with what your heart really wants? These are things that you'll need to address now, and you'll be supported in addressing them in preparation for the big changes that are going to come to hierarchical systems such as banking, which I've just described. There's going to be big changes in those realms. Banking, government organizations, any hierarchical top-down structures, they're going to go through a shift next year. So now, if you're Taurus rising, it's a very important time to be addressing how you are working if you're in those realms, but also how your life trajectory is going, just in general. Are you where you want to be? Are you happy? Do you need to make changes that support your true desire for life more? Now, obviously, when we have a full moon in the first house, we've got either the sun, we've got the sun in the seventh house. So this tells us that there is a need to integrate two polaric opposites, if you're Taurus rising, that consist of your relationship with others and your relationship with the self. There's a need to combine both. Are you honoring yourself, and are you honoring your most intimate relationships, your wife or your husband, or your business partnerships, or your client relationships, these important pivotal relationships in your life? Are they being honored, and are you honoring your own journey? Again, this does correlate to what I just spoke of a moment ago with the review of how is my life going? Where am I heading? Am I surviving and thriving in a way that works in accordance with my heart's desire? Similarly, relationships, are they supporting the trajectory that I'm on? Or do I feel at odds with what my wife expects of me and where I want to be? Is that out of alignment? Well, maybe this full moon is saying this needs to be aligned. What if my husband isn't happy with where I'm heading in life? Am I happy with it? Will leaving this particular journey, destination, to say I'm a hairdresser or something, if I leave the hairdressing field to go and pursue psychology, is that going to make him happy? Am I going to be happy? There is this real need, if you are Taurus rising with this full moon, to review and make decisions about the trajectory you're on in life and how it's going to affect others and where you're going to be in terms of self-satisfaction. Don't take any action though until Mercury goes direct on the 21st of November. Think, go deep, ponder, review, and then take action after the 21st of November if you need to change the trajectory of life that you're on. Finally, well done, Aries, for waiting till last. I know that's not usually your style, so congratulations for hanging in there. If you are Aries rising, then this is falling, the full moon is falling in your second house, an exalted full moon in your second house. It means that you need to review your money. Have a look at how you're spending, what things you're spending it on, where your money's going, your ability to save and collect, but also not just money, but other tangible items as well. Things like, have a look at the clothes. Maybe you need to go through your cupboard and get rid of a ton of clothes that really are not needed any longer, and purge those things, or review the outfits that you're wearing, or go into the pantry. Have you got, old outdated tins of food and packets of biscuits that really no one would touch in a pink fit? Maybe that needs to be cleaned out as well. It's a time for reviewing, restructuring, and reorganizing things that are of a sensual nature. The five senses, the things we touch, taste, see, hear, and smell, which is food, obviously, which is our clothing, which is, our home environment, and so on. This is a time for reorganizing that, and you're going to be supported in making changes, changing the food that you eat, changing the clothes and the wardrobe that you've got, changing the way you use your money and you structure your money. You're supported in that from this wedge shape now, and it's actually really important to make the changes that need to be made now in preparation for what's going to occur in Capricorn in 2020. You're kind of setting things up in preparation for that time. So that's the first component of this particular configuration, the full moon. But the other thing is the need to integrate two financial houses. It's not just to focus solely on the second house when we have a full moon. It is looking at the integration of two polaric opposites. So not only are you required at this time to look at your own financial situation and prepare things and structure things in a healthy way, you're also being asked to look at other people's finances. Look at the finances of your partner. Is every I dotted and every T crossed in that regard, with regard to wills and maybe prenuptial agreements or inheritances of some sort? Is your superannuation organized? This is the house of other people's money. So you might like to sit down with your partner if you're Aries rising and have a discussion. Hey, what if I die? What are we going to do? How are things going to work? You might like to meet with your parents and say, have we got a succession plan organized for the farm or for your business or whatever? What's going to happen? Now's a time for really reviewing those things if you're Aries rising. Not only that, but this is the house of self-love, and this is the house of receiving. So there is a need, if you're Aries rising, to somehow integrate the love for self and the ability and capacity to receive from others. Now, if you're like me, receiving from others is something I find really hard to do. I feel like I'm Pisces, I've got to give all the time. As an Aries rising, that might not be so much of an issue for you guys, which is a blessing. But just the same, this full moon is causing you to take a look at these things. Am I loving myself? Am I giving enough to others? That might be something you want to look at. And am I receiving enough? Am I getting what I need from other people in a financial way, but also in terms of love, in terms of intimacy, in terms of support and kindness? So review these things, and if you can make change anywhere, then do so. Maybe, you need to speak to one of your partners or business partners, relational partners, bosses. Maybe you need to speak to someone about, hey, I'm not getting the support that I feel that I need in my life. And take action around being able to receive. That's important with this full moon, to address your capacity to receive, as well as how you are managing your money. Also, your capacity to give as well would be important to look at too. So that's what we're seeing in this week ahead for this very special and beautiful exalted full moon that's occurring on the 12th of November. I hope this reading has given you some insight into what might be unfolding in your life and why, and that it sets you up for a good week ahead. Let's finish with a little prayer. Energy of love in the universe, we are so glad for this beautiful full moon in Taurus exalted. It is lovely to watch, and it will be very important for us to experience. And so we thank you for the energy that it's bringing us. Help us to really tune into that energy. Help us to apply it to our lives in ways that are meaningful and helpful, and that will support us into the future, so that we can be ready for what is to come, and that we can make good decisions that help us to live fulfilled and happy lives that bless us and others. Thank you so much for the energy of love. May it surround us all in the week ahead, and so it is. Thanks for joining me, and I'll have another Astro Weather Report for you next week.